Pixies, Pixies, and more Pixies. Last night, we had a plethora of Pixies in our game in Princes of the Apocalypse. This is our Agic crew. I will get into this all in just a moment here. Let me just say welcome to the vlog, and let's talk a little bit. I've touched on this subject before, but I really want to do this again. I want to talk a little more about letting your players have their fun. And in this case, it specifically comes down to letting the players play the game the way they want to and solve problems the way they want to and come up with creative and interesting and exciting ways to do it that maybe as a DM might make you want to pull your hair out and drive you a little nuts and so forth. And you know what? I think ultimately that's okay. So last night, we're playing our game. Our crew has recently, just last session, been promoted to level 11. So we're getting to that place in the game where things get really interesting. The fighter has 3 attacks, plus, because of his feats, if he gets a killing blow, he gets an extra attack as a bonus action, so we could get up to 4 attacks. That's not even including his action surge. So the fighter is like, a Ginsu with arm, or, like a whirling dervish of Ginsu knives or something. A brilliant character created by Brett. He plays Baslan, this pit fighter styled kind of, gladiator, essentially, tin can with a pokey stick. And he's just brutal. And he's just pure melee. And lethally effective, like ridiculously effective, super hard to hit, wonderful. It's fantastic as a tank and amazing as in a fight, right? Up toe-to-toe with the enemy. The other players, we have 3 casters. We have our druid wizard, mostly druid. She's druid with a little bit of wizard. We have a sorcerer with a little bit of rogue, and we have a purebred bard from the College of Valor. So a sword bard, if you will. And so we wow. So so we have Baslan, who basically has one thing. He does it well. He either uses his really amazing short sword and shield and is like impossible to hit and just like tears into his enemies, or he has a big axe that he does ridiculous amounts of damage with if he hits with it. That's his shtick. That's it. He's got it and he sticks to it and he's really darn good at it. And that kind of makes him a fun character, right? But then we have the casters, who are like, they have so many different ways that they can make the how do I want to say that? Well, make it a bad day for me, since I get to play all the monsters and all the villains and so forth. So they can make my day kind of crummy because of all the craziness that they can get into. But here's the thing. Last night, the party was faced with an obstacle. And they had a couple of different ways to get past this obstacle, to get themselves to sort of the next part of the mission. And they came up with a really creative solution. One of the cool things about Kyra, our druid, one of the cool things about being a druid is that druids are sort of intended to become really powerful. And it is debatable, but a lot of people would agree that the druid can be, or maybe is, the most powerful class at high level, right? There are others that you could say is the most powerful, but for certain, druid is a powerful class as they progress through the levels. And at this point now, she has the ability to summon creatures. She has the ability to turn into creatures herself. And one of the cool things she can do is she can summon pixies. Now, this can be one of those things that DMs can't stand. They want to pull their hair out. It drives them nuts. And I understand that. If you have players that intentionally try to make things difficult for you and for the other players, then you might have to find ways to kind of limit what they can do. And for instance, summoned creatures, maybe as the DM, you control summoned creatures and you determine what they do to a point or something like that. But in my case, as I'm growing and learning as a DM, I really want to give as much of the agency and as much of the control to the players. I want to let them free in the playground, and then hands off. They get to do what they want to do, and I'm just going to make sure that the gate is closed and that that if the ball goes out of bounds, I'm going to throw it back in bounds and so forth. I want to keep them on the path, so to speak, without putting the path in front of them. So I just think that giving the players as much opportunity to come up with wild, crazy ideas as possible and then let it happen, it makes the game more fun. So here's what they did last night. They decided that, so Kyra decided she would summon Pixies and have the Pixies cast Fly on the party, and then Farron, our sorcerer, would make everyone else invisible. Brilliant. Wonderful. Love it. So this is what they do. So they came up with this like combo, which some people might think, oh, it's so overpowered. Okay, fine, whatever. Think what you want. They were having fun. So to me, that trumps it. That's the ultimate. And then it worked. Of course it worked. It was brilliant. It was perfect. They were able to, and okay, here's another thing I need to add. I almost forgot. All three of the casters have a familiar. And I let the bard, because it's like lifetime dream, I let the bard summon a familiar as a pseudo-dragon. With the caveat that he only gets one. If his pseudo-dragon dies, it might be a real ordeal to get that familiar back. That familiar might be done if it dies. But for the time being, he's got a pseudo-dragon, which is kind of like, one of those things like, you want to grow up and have a mansion when you're an adult or something. I just gave him the mansion. What I gave him is his dream car or something like that, I guess. And so far, it's been great. This session was super fun. Everybody had a good time. They were really creative. Yes, having all of those pieces on the board at once slows down combat. That's just something we have to deal with as a team, as a group. And so far, I think it went okay. So, brilliantly conceived, wonderfully, enacted. The plan worked. They were able to ambush some guards in the next room because they were able to scout ahead first quietly without disturbing them. Then they were able to use these special new abilities and skills and powers that they all have and sneak themselves into this room and then get the game started on their terms. I was stoked. I thought it was awesome, and I was thrilled to be a part of that and to facilitate for that for them in the game. And they still have to deal with some nasty stuff. They have just faced for the first time a fire dragon and a fire giant, which they have just found out hits really hard. And so they're facing some challenges. They're facing some big challenges right now. And so why not let them have fun with big solutions and fun solutions? And that's once again, the more experience I get as a DM, the more I'm realizing as much as I can let the players have fun and do the things they want the way they want them to do within reason, and letting our rolls and letting there be some randomness in the dice and so forth. As long as we do that, everybody wins. I have a good time, they have a good time, and it's madness and fun, and it feels epic. So I think that's the way to have a great game. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Keep rolling 20s, and remember, it's your game. Play your way.